risking their lives on boats like that with their children. I saw pregnant women.
And the Turkish Coast Guard says what we witness at the moment is an illegal pushback.
Because we don't have a life.
It's a calm, peaceful day on the waters around Cunda Island in the Turkish province of Balıkesir. But after dark, the sea comes alive. Almost every night, overcrowded inflatable boats push off into the Aegean Sea, the start of a dangerous journey for people in search of a better life. Sometimes risking it all. On the other side of the horizon is Lesbos. Migrants attempt the short but dangerous journey to the island, hoping to enter the European Union via Greece to seek asylum. But many never make it. Almost every day from dusk till dawn, irregular migrants on boats set out to sea in search of a better life. Although most of them know these waters may never deliver them to what they're looking for, they still think it's worth the plunge compared to the agony back home they've had to escape. In February 2022, 12 migrants froze to death in the Aegean after a suspected pushback. Their bodies were found by the Turkish Coast Guard. The Turkish Interior Ministry said the asylum seekers had been stripped naked by Greek forces, allegations Athens denies. In a tweet, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres responded to the news saying, "Every person searching for a better life deserves safety and dignity. We need safe, legal routes for migrants and refugees." What followed was a leaked report from the EU's anti-fraud agency, OLAF. It says the EU's border agency, Frontex, violated the migrants' fundamental rights by covering up Greece's illegal pushbacks. According to the redacted document, in April 2020, the Hellenic Coast Guard, or HCG, deliberately towed a large number of migrants into Turkish waters and abandoned them without life jackets. This incident was reportedly filmed by the Frontex surveillance aircraft, or FSA, in the full knowledge of the Frontex Situation Center, or FSC. The report also reveals various WhatsApp and email exchanges between Frontex employees about the alleged pushbacks. It says one message shows skepticism on the credibility of the alleged pushbacks reported by open sources, while another reads, "We could probably see it as part of the hybrid attack we are under," supporting the narrative that Greece and Turkey were engaged in a hybrid warfare and it was Frontex's unquestionable duty to support Greece, an EU member state. OLAF also found that, despite credible accusations on open sources, Frontex failed to launch a serious incident report into a suspected pushback in April 2020, even though it had done so for similar incidents in the past. OLAF interviewed Frontex employees about the withdrawal of surveillance aircraft from the scenes of the alleged pushbacks. One of them says it was done so that the agency could avoid dealing with such sensitive incidents by not witnessing them at all. OLAF also accuses Frontex of preventing its fundamental rights officer
from accessing information on the alleged Greek pushbacks in an attempt to keep its reputation intact. To better understand the human toll behind the accusations, we traveled to Turkey's northern Aegean coast, where we got exclusive access to be embedded with the Turkish Coast Guard during one of their night patrols. The Turkish Coast Guard is used to being tipped off about an overcrowded inflatable boat or life raft trying to reach Greece. It almost happens once every night. When the weather is nice, it's usually more. The distance isn't far, it just takes 20 minutes to cross on a jet ski. But for those who pin all their hopes on a flimsy boat, this might turn out to be the longest night of their lives. It's an overwhelming sight to find these people stranded at sea with no belongings and nowhere to go. Although it's a relief that the Turkish Coast Guard is here to rescue them, one cannot help but wonder how little these people must have to risk it all on a boat like this. We are in the Aegean Sea off the coast of the Turkish province of Izmir, and these people are just being rescued by the Turkish Coast Guard. 30 people, including a woman and children, are on this inflatable flimsy boat without life jackets, and we can see the boat's motor. Its motor is removed. What we know is they attempted to cross to the Aegean island of Lesbos. As you can see behind me, the landmass behind me is the Aegean island of Lesbos. As you can see over there, it's very close by. But the Turkish Coast Guard says they were pushed back by the Greek forces, denying their rights to asylum. And it's been a very cold night, and crossing, especially on a boat like this, is very dangerous. And the Turkish Coast Guard says what we witness at the moment is an illegal pushback. Some look scared, some indifferent, some furious, and hopeless. After they are put on deck, the Turkish Coast Guard ensures their safe return to land.
Denizde kurtarılan düzensiz göçmen.
Irregular migrants rescued at the sea are safely carried to the port by the Coast Guard. During the transition, those who need emergency medical treatment are examined, first aids are administered by the Coast Guard units if needed, and an ambulance is kept on standby at the port. Once they reach the port, some factors are taken into consideration, and the irregular migrants are separated into groups such as the disabled, elderly, and infants, who are then transferred to places pre-arranged for them with the aim of fulfilling their basic needs such as food and clothing. Blankets are handed out and their humanitarian needs are met.
And once we were back on shore and the whole procedure was complete, I finally had a chance to ask them about their ordeal.
At the night, we get at the ship. They take the telephones and they hit some people. And my friend hit my friend. Yeah.
They hit your friend.
Yes, they hit my friend.
Who hit your friend?
Police, Greece police. Police Greece. They hit my friend. They take some people take his phone.
So your friend told us that Greek police kicked you and stole your phone. Tell us about that.
We were trying to reach Greece via sea, but later on, Greek police spotted us and then assaulted us. Afterwards, they took our money and phones and told us to go back to Turkish waters. Later on, they pulled their guns on us to intimidate us.
Did you ask for help?
Yeah, go to Turkey. Some police go to Turkey. Leave. Don't go to Greece. Don't go to Greece.
So they told you go to...
Yeah, go to Turkey. Back. Go back. Don't come.
بس پوش زیادت نه اینجا زیادت زیاد خطا شد ترس خورده بودم دیگه.
After I fell, I was afraid for myself and for my baby. I am still very sore because of it.
Yunanistan unsurları ilk olarak
The Greek forces stopped the inflatable boats or other sea vehicles belonging to the irregular migrants when they encountered them in the middle line between the eastern Aegean islands of Greece and the Turkey. I mean on the border. And then they ensure that they're towed into the Turkish territorial waters. If they cannot tow the irregular migrants who reach international waters and Greek territorial waters, they stop them where they are and prevent their movement. Many illegal actions incompatible with human dignity have occurred from the time the irregular migrants were apprehended to when they were pushed back by Greek security forces. The migrants interviewed said they were subjected to the use of force and physical abuse, which are against their physical integrity and rights. In addition, the irregular migrants say their valuables, cell phones, and money were taken. They had gasoline poured on them, causing chemical burns, and were thrown into the sea with their hands cuffed. Alongside Greece, the European Border and Cross Guard Agency Frontex, which combats cross-border crimes, conducts patrols and rescues in the Aegean Sea, has also become involved in these dealings without any regard for international law.
We got in touch with Frontex via email to ask the EU Border Agency about the allegations and the resignation of the agency's previous director, Fabrice Leggeri. In April 2022, former Frontex head Fabrice Leggeri stepped down after being investigated by Olaf over the agency's alleged complicity in illegal pushbacks. Leggeri was also criticized by the European Parliament for failing to protect the human rights of asylum seekers. Following the resignation of its former head in May 2022, the European Parliament has rejected approving Frontex's accounts, blaming the agency for failing to investigate alleged human rights violations of asylum seekers in Greece. The agency responded to us. It did not deny the allegations, but neither did it comment on our question about Leggeri's resignation. Frontex's press office told us the agency takes the findings of investigations and audits seriously and uses them as opportunities to make changes for the better. And the Olaf report identified a number of shortcomings, including in the sharing of information with the agency's fundamental rights officer. The agency and its management board have now agreed to take a number of remedial measures. Frontex says over the course of 2022, Greek authorities also established a joint action plan with the agency to right the wrongs of the past.
What the European countries are actually at the moment trying to do is to prevent these people from entering the European countries. Frontex is a good example. You know, Frontex is managing the European borders, as you know, but it's a very big question how it manages this issue. You know, there are many reports, international reports, some of them were prepared by Human Rights Watch, for example, accusing Frontex using illegal means, illegal measures, and sometimes measures violating the fundamental rights of these people to prevent these people entering into European countries.
On the headlines, news headlines, we are always seeing it as if like alleged illegal pushbacks.
According to international law, there are certain groups of people who should be accepted into country if they are coming from rather unsafe places, if there are dangers to threatening their lives or their well-beings, and then the country to which the illegal migrants are coming exactly should be accepted into the country to examine their situation. Rather than accepting them, if the country is pushing them back or preventing them to enter into country is actually violating the international legal rule, which is a fundamental rule of the obligation to accept these people. This is called in international, it is called the non-refoulement principle, which means you shouldn't prevent them from entering into the country. Rather, you should accept them to examine their real situation towards accepting them to give at least a temporary protection or temporary residence in the country in order to prevent them from such dangers. The second part is actually the methods which are used to push these people back are actually violating many fundamental rules protecting the fundamental rights of these people, including right to life and including right to not to be treated inhumanly or not to face any act which can be called as a torture sometimes. So these acts, these methods which are used by Greece to push these people back are actually violating one of the many of the fundamental rules of human rights, which are recognized in the European Convention of Human Rights and many other international human rights conventions. And these principles are actually recognized almost in all countries' legal systems as well.
Why do you want to cross to the Aegean island of Lesbos?
As everybody knows, there is a war, a civil war going on in our country, Ethiopia. So we want to go to Europe to be able to live in better conditions.
Yeah, because we don't have a life. Yeah, we have a war at my home.
Where are you from?
I'm from Palestine. We don't have anything in my home. Yeah, when I leave, we search about a good life. We search about a good life. We search about a work. We don't have a work at my home. We don't have anything.
Lesbos, a beautiful Aegean island, a territory of the European Union. The giant vessels of the Greek Coast Guard welcome you here, guarding the doors opening to Europe, where most of the irregular migrants are desperate to start fresh. And some can, but with a catch. Those who do manage to reach Lesbos can expect an uncertain future here on the island. They can't leave until a decision is made on their asylum application, and it's a long bureaucratic process. In the meantime, they stay temporarily in the camps. And here where I stand used to be the site of Europe's largest and most notorious refugee camp, Moria. It was burned down to the ground in September 2020, but advocates say the suffering and horrors people stranded in the camp experienced remain. Before the blaze tore it apart, the camp housed more than 13,000 asylum seekers, 3 times its capacity. And in a matter of hours, they were all left without shelter. Both the Greek government and the EU were previously accused of not doing enough to tackle overcrowding and letting asylum seekers live in squalid and inhumane conditions, contradicting the very human rights values that the bloc is set to uphold. Although it's gone now, the camp itself and the fire, described by some as a humanitarian disaster, have left a stain on Europe's response to the refugee crisis. Greek authorities say that lessons have been learned and the camps are now better.
Most of the time, this journey is not delivering them what they are looking for. And some froze to death, unfortunately, and they know a couple of others froze to death, trying exactly the same thing that they are trying at that moment. They know this, but they're still risking their lives on boats like that with their children. I saw pregnant women taking this dangerous journey. I saw children, infants. They're hoping to find a better life. And how likely is that they are finding a better life?
Even if they reach to these places, there is no guarantee that they are having a better life, or at least a life they dreamed of. So that's another part of this story. We have to also talk about the situation they are in these countries, including Greece. So that's another part of this human side of the story. From very start to the end, we have to look at the human aspects of all this issue, not only the dangers of journey, but also the other sides and the origins, root causes of these illegal migration, and the final part of this issue as well.
Is there a way to manage this irregular migration in the Aegean Sea without violating the international law, basically?
There are two sides of this issue. Tackling with the irregular migrants, it's a very major problems of world at the moment. I think so far, within the figures of this year, it's over 100 million people displaced and had to leave their own countries or places to go another country. So that's a huge number, and it's quite clear that it's really difficult to manage this. But there are two sides of managing this issue, this global issue. The first one is fighting the root causes of, illegal migration. There are many places in the world which are engulfed into the local wars, local conflicts. The military conflicts are the major reasons to cause this irregular migration. So that's why all the other countries, especially the European countries, United States, many other major countries, should fight against these root causes, especially trying to stop the regional wars, regional military conflicts. This is the first point. The second point is that within this context, these countries should also try to prevent the poverty, which is another reason, one of the major reasons causing this irregular migration. So the relatively more developed countries should help these kind of regions to prevent or to reduce the poverty in order to prevent the root causes of illegal migration. It's no solution to try to push these people back, towards the countries that they are coming from. That's not an answer. There are always another way that these peoples are going to try to enter into these countries. So that's why these countries should come together, in my perception, try to devise international regulations to share the burden, adequately. There are some countries like Turkey which had to take most of this burden just because Turkey is bordering these kind of regions, and that's not fair. There are no international agreements among able countries to share the burden. I think the first answer should be to establish international regulations which would divide this burden equitably among the developed countries. So that's going to be a very good answer to tackle these kind of difficulties. The European countries are not actually doing this. They promise to give support to countries like Turkey, financial support to help these people there. We know that many of these promises have not been kept properly. So that's why I say that there should be international regulations, helping the countries which have more refugees, more irregular migrants than the others.
It may take great effort to bring all the European countries around one table. let alone convince each of them to share the burden. An internationally viable solution still remains distant. And migrants will likely cram onto many more boats yet, as long as they feel safer on water than on land.